Um, well, welcome everyone. We're really pleased to be doing this today. And what we thought we'd do is just go through a few slides about using the COPM electronically in a couple of different ways, and then leave lots of time for questions. And we do have a couple of people who will be viewing this recorded from Australia because it's the middle of the night there, and they've sent in some questions as well. So what we want to do is just talk about two ways in which you can go E or electronic with the COPM. One is a web-based application, and the second method, which is mostly used by organizations, is the inclusion of the COPM in electronic health record systems. So this is what the COPM looks like. This is a two-page version of the 5th edition. I think most of you know that, but this gives us a sense of what it is we need to replicate within a web-based application or within an electronic health system. So first of all, the web-based application, we've had this now for a couple of years. And what it is, it's a web-based application that has been developed by a software company of Kingston, Ontario. And we chose to do a web-based application because actually doing an app on a tablet, whether it be an iPad or an Android tablet, is much less secure. So a web-based application can be made to be much more secure. And so what this does is it allows you to complete the COPM for an individual on the web, and it produces a two-page report that can be saved in a PDF format. It can be shared with people, and it can be attached to an electronic health record or any reporting system as a PDF. All of the measures that are completed by an individual, by a person within the app are archived, so you can go back and look at them later. So it can be used by both individuals and organizations. It is a secure app, and I'll get into, when we get into the questions, I'll get into the security a little bit more here, but we also have some questions about that. So in order to access the app, we have a two-factor authentication system working. So you have a private password, a username and password, which you use to access the app. And once you have done that, you are asked for an authentication code. And this comes from an app called Authenticator, a Google Authenticator. So you go to your device. I use my iPhone for this. You get the code and you insert that code into the system. So there's two steps to get you into the system. The authentication code changes every 30 seconds. So it would be very hard for someone to get in. So we have a portal for the COPM that you can use when completing the COPM, and all of the data is stored in its own encrypted database. So there's two ways that people can sign up to use the app. They can sign up as individuals, and we've had a number of people who have individual private practices do this. They have an individual account. Or you can sign up as a manager. So this is where an account manager will purchase an account for a group of subscribers. So for example, we have one group in Western Canada that has purchased accounts for 50 occupational therapists who are working within their organization. What this allows the manager to do is they have access to all of the users and the information. They're the only one who has access to that. And it centralizes the billing for a number of people. So because there's sub-accounts, and it can also through a data aggregation module that we have, produce summary reports on behalf of the group of therapists. So you still have all the security features of the individual account. An individual therapist can only go on and see their data, but the manager can look at summary information across the organization. So let's demonstrate this. Since I just signed on, you're going to see this from the very beginning. Okay. This is our website where we have where you can access the app and get information on it. It will take you directly to the app. And so this is, can everyone see this?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep.
So this is the sign-on page for the app. The sign-on page gives you some information about the web-based application, a little information about security. It tells you how to get started and sign up. And it gives you information about pricing. There's a one-time activation fee of $10 for each person. And then you buy measures, and the fees for the measures are similar or a little bit less than they would cost in paper-based form. So I will log on. So I enter my password, and it's asking for my authentication code. So I will go onto my iPhone and get it. It's 6 digits. It changes every 30 seconds, and I clearly didn't do it fast enough. The authenticator will tell you how many seconds are left, and it was turning red as I entered it, so it switched over to another number, and now I entered that number. So once you sign on, you can see that I have 300 measures available to me, and I've used 6 of them. I can start a new COPM. I can look at my active and archived COPMs. I can purchase, if I'm a manager, I could purchase additional users, or I can manage user accounts. So to show you a measure and how it works, I'll go on to one that I have completed. So what we've done is replicate the measure along with some basic instructions on the web app. And it's a matter of really just going in and completing the person's information. So I could begin to complete a reassessment here. I would not rescore importance, but you basically list the occupational performance problems that have been identified by the client in each area, and then there's a drop-down menu to put in the importance score, the self-care areas, productivity, and leisure. You give the scoring code, and then the scoring is inserted below. So say I'm going to do a reassessment on this. Hopefully she's improved. Satisfaction has also improved. I will just quickly go through these, and you'll see how the score comes up. Okay, so it is saving it for me. And it's calculated the scores and it's calculated the change scores. People have questions about the form on the app itself?
I just want to mention those that don't have microphone access, you can type in questions. There should be a chat feature at the bottom of the page that you can click on.
Okay. So, I will go back to the measures. See here, I can start a new COPM. I can get more. This button here, this green button, tells me that I can export the measures. That's an additional module that we have developed that organizations or individuals can purchase. It's a one-time cost of $300, and it exports all the measures into a CSV or Excel file and gives you a report across all clients. On the app, we also have help pages, so specifically help with using the authentication protocol, what to do if you get a new device, because it has to be set up for authentication, and information on how to purchase the COPM manual. So that gives you just a quick view of the web-based application. The other way that the COPM can be used electronically is to integrate and include the COPM directly into electronic health records. We had thought about developing a way in which to link the web-based application into electronic health records. But quite honestly, there are so many different electronic health record systems, and they're all so different that is quite impossible. So what we can do, though, for organizations that want to include the COPM into their EHRs, is we do a non-exclusive license. So this is an agreement by which the organization can replicate the COPM as closely as possible within their electronic health record. And they use these over a set period of time. So this license agreement stipulates the ownership of the COPM, not the ownership of the data, but the ownership of the COPM remains with the COPM group. And this copyright and ownership information must be indicated when it's built into the COPM. We do stipulate that the COPM, when it's in the electronic health record, can't be incorporated into any products that are distributed to anybody else or sold. And we do stipulate that we don't have any liability for how it is used. So what we try to do with this is we work with the organizations to try to ensure that the content of the measure is not changed in any way. There are occasions in which the appearance of the measure has to be changed because, quite honestly, some of the electronic health record systems are very primitive, and we're not able to replicate some of the graphics and some of the features that are on the 5th edition of the COPM. But we try to get it as close as possible while maintaining the content. So that gives you a very quick overview. I will stop sharing my screen right now and we'll come back to see each other. Very quick overview of using the COPM electronically. So open to your questions and comments now, and as well we do have some questions from the folks in Australia, which I will include at the appropriate times.
I have a question, Mary.
Hey Dana, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
My question is related to the web-based section. So would it be the person who's managing all those COPM reports, would they be able to look at to get a score of the average of all their clients or across their entire organization?
They will. What they need to do in order to do that is to have the data export module, and then it comes out in a CSV file, which can be imported into statistical analysis programs, but it also comes out in an Excel file. And certainly if any of you are interested in seeing what the Excel file can look like, just send Cindy an email and we can send that to you. The Excel file gives the data, so what are the problems and all of the scores for each individual client, and then it does a summary. It does a summary in terms of not only scores, but the number of times that specific problems have been identified.
Great, thanks.
I think, Mary, there was a written question. I don't know if you can see it.
Okay, I can if I open up my chat thing. Yep. Okay, the question is there a mechanism to share the report between organizations? Can the PDF be printed and provided to the patient and forwarded to the next organization taking over their care? Yes, the PDF from the web-based application can be printed. It can also be shared. You know, what we say to people is as long as you have purchased the COPM and are sharing a COPM that has been completed, then that's perfectly fine. What we don't want people to do is to share blank copies, because obviously that's breaking copyright. But the PDF can be printed and given to the client, and it also can be forwarded to the next organization. And because I know that, yeah, I think the person who asked this question is from Sunnybrook, and I think that's exactly what you're doing, is sharing the COPM across organizations. You can tell me if I'm wrong with that, but. There were some questions from Australia about the web-based application. A number of them related to security, and they wanted to know about encryption. So all of the fields in the database, except the username and email, so all of the fields that are related to the client data are encrypted. And so each user can only access their own forms, and the account manager would have access to all the forms.
And just to be clear, Mary, when you said a username, you mean the name of the therapist?
Yeah, the therapist creates their own username. Another question relates to how is the web-based application accessed. It's accessed through anything that can access the internet. So it can be a computer, it can be a tablet, it can be a phone or an iPad. There are a number of things related to security and activity log reports here for auditing. There's not a trail of every transaction, but the company does keep logs to the system, which can be reviewed. In terms of backup and storage,
We're just on the teleconference line and we've lost audio. I'm not sure if you can hear us.
we can hear you. We will check this.
I'm just writing a note that we can hear them. Oh. I'm going to ask them to log off and then log back in.
Okay. Okay, so that's Catherine, I think.
I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect, thank you. At what point did I cut out?
It's been a couple of minutes now. I'm trying to recall. We've been problem solving. Is right before Siobhan asked her question.
Okay. So following, I answered her question in that the web application does produce a PDF that can be printed, and completed forms can be shared. So they can be printed for the client and they can be forwarded to other organizations. I was then answering some questions around data storage and encryption. I won't go into a lot of detail on this, but all the fields in the database are encrypted, except for the username and email. Each user can only access their own forms. All of the data is backed up daily, and it's backed up and sent to magnetic hard drive at Amazon. Testing of this encryption and backup is done every month. There are the company, so the COPM is on its own site. The data is separate, and the company does internal, what are called vulnerability and penetration testing on a regular basis to ensure that everything is secure. They have never had any intrusions. Certainly organizations that are using it are welcome to do their own audit. So that gives you some information about the security of the web-based application. Certainly this was foremost in what we did in both planning the web-based application, testing it out, and also selecting the software company that developed it. Other questions about electronic use of it, whether it be the web-based application or into an electronic health record system?
So just a comment, Mary, I trust all the details that you gave about the security would also convince ethics committees that it's safe enough, right?
I believe so. I mean, it's probably more secure than a lot of the way that research data has been collected and secured in the past. Mm-hmm. It really has the highest level of security that we're able to put in place. I mean, I think one of the most important security features is the two-factor authentication and the two-step login process. Because even if someone gets they get their username and they having to get your password, they're not going to also be able to get your phone and your authentication number as well. So it's really a very secure entry system.
Okay, thank you.
Dana, before everybody came on, you and I were chatting a little bit about using the COPM as the app in particular as part of a larger data collection process within a research study. Do you want to say a little bit more about that, or?
Well, there's two aspects to that. One aspect is that we wanted our participant to complete the COPM scores on their own, and that it will stream back to us just to repeatedly measure specific activities. What we did eventually, we merged, which is something else, completely something else that we were talking about right now, but maybe something for you to develop or for someone else. With permission, we actually merged the COPM question that we wanted to, or scale, to another questionnaire and send it to RedCup.
So so you've done the interview initially and identified all the activities, and this is for them to rate their performance scores along the way through the study multiple times, right?
Multiple times, yeah. And that's one thing. The other thing is that we're using now the COPM to in a different kind of format, because we're looking at teacher performance or role performance of teachers. And so we're not going to use it in terms of leisure, or ADL, or self-care, or productivity. And we were hesitant to use it because it's structured this way. Although we could put any kind of activity that the teacher told us, so maybe now I'm a little bit more convinced it can be adjusted. Even though the activity do not really speak to specific occupational areas. As long as we read it and we understand it, then it's fine.
It's interesting, and if we have time at the end, I'd like to ask a couple more comments about that. But I see, Mary, there's another question about the organization using the PDF.
Yeah, so can you clarify if an organization would need to save the PDF as an attachment in their health record? Or is there capacity for it to be integrated directly into their EHR system for viewing of completed reports? So with the web-based application, if you were using the web-based application, they would have to save the PDF as an attachment to the record. In order for the COPM to be integrated directly into the system, there has to be a way in which the web-based application talks computer language to the electronic health system. And when we've investigated doing that, there are so many different systems and so many different ways to do it, it's actually quite prohibitive. It can be done, but it's really expensive. So we were getting quotes of, anywhere from $25,000, $40,000 to do this. We're a small group and, we obviously invested a lot to put into the application to develop it, but we don't have that kind of funds, nor do organizations. So the alternative to that is that an organization can have an agreement with us, and we have a standard agreement which we send to people for this. The organization has an agreement with us that you can replicate the COPM directly into your electronic health record. So then it can be viewed as a completed report. It can be completed right within the system. You don't have to go outside the system to bring the PDF form into it. So the process that we go through for that is the organization signs an agreement with us. They create the replication of the COPM within their system. They send us that, or send us a screenshot of that so we can see it. We approve it, and then they proceed to use it. And the cost of that, there's an administrative fee to set it up, and then the cost of that is very similar to the cost of buying paper-based measures, just based on projected usage each year. Does that answer that question for you, Siobhan? Looks like it does. Good. Other questions that people have? Alan, did you have a question that you wanted to ask of Nana?
Well, I was curious. It's a bit away from the notion of the electronic record, or from the web app piece. But I was curious about your experience with having clients just, basically self-administer and self-rate their scores on the particular occupations that had been identified on an ongoing basis. So, because generally speaking, you go back into an interview, you redo the interview and rescore. And if they're going in there by themselves doing that, I'm just curious how that's working. Are you finding what you were thinking you'd find, or are they having difficulty doing that? Because that sort of interactive piece around that, if I understood you correctly, that interactive piece around that seems to be missing. And
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how that works.
I don't recall any kind of, yes, I mean, the results we're very pleased with the results, and that's for sure. I don't recall any issues with that, but I have to say that it's not in all cases they did it by themselves. In some cases, the therapist was there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I can conclude about the entire data set that I have. I need to look specifically at those that completed completely on their own.
Yeah. I could say a little bit about this, Helen, because I was involved in the initial studies that were done this way, and certainly it couldn't happen in all the cases, but where it could, the interview was done initially to identify the occupational performance problems, and then some training was done with the client in terms of, this is what you'll be receiving. This is what we wish you to do. So it is one of the first times that I think it's been done in this way. It's just the performance scale. So it's for an interrupted time series design where we're measuring the performance score a number of times over a period of time. But it does seem to have worked quite well.
Yeah, just and I don't want to get off the topic of electronics, but as from a research psychometrics perspective, in essence, what that does is create, quote, an alternate form methodology, right? Mm-hmm. So and the data, you were happy with the data, so that's good. But if you had been unhappy with the data, or if the data hadn't performed as well, you wouldn't have any way of knowing whether the data, and even in the case where the data did perform the way you expected, you don't know whether the data are performing that way because whether the fact that it's being administered in a somewhat different way is contributing to that data. So I'm wondering, did you do a little, again, this is way off the topic of this.
We did test it out ahead of time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you have some alternate form data to show that it works?
Well, we did test it out, probably not as rigorously as one might want to, but we did test it out ahead of time. So.
Yeah, okay. But we're not suggesting that therapists as a whole would use the COPM as a totally self-administered measure.
No, and it was not self-administered in this situation because the initial interviews were done with a therapist.
Right. Okay, it's interesting.
Yeah, there have been a couple of studies where people have done the follow-up on the COPM with the telephone, and that has worked reasonably well.
Yeah.
We do get a lot of questions about self-administration of the COPM, and we always say no.
Right. Okay.
Other questions about electronics, or clearly you can ask questions about anything too. Anything related to the COPM. Just looking to see if there's any other questions from Australia that I haven't answered. Well, there's a question about process for requesting new users and removing old users. New users can be done online by the manager through the web-based application. And removing users is typically done, a request is sent in and then they are removed. And then if someone stops using the web-based application, the data can be exported and kept by the organization, and then once they've stopped, it is securely deleted by the software company so that it doesn't exist on the encrypted database any longer. I think those are most of the questions that they had for us. Any further questions before we wind up? Okay, well, I'm not seeing or hearing anyone, so further questions. So on behalf of Helen and Cindy and the whole COPM group, thank you very much for signing on. We're doing 3 of these during Occupational Therapy Month, so I think the next one is
on October 30th, which with Helen and Nancy Pollock on using the COPM with children and families.
So if you know anybody who is interested in that area, please encourage them to contact us and sign on for that. And certainly if you have any questions following this, or anything that we can help you with in terms of using the COPM electronically or paper-based, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. And certainly welcome all your feedback on this session and on the measure and its use as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, people.
Bye,
Everybody,
everyone.
have a good day.
Bye.